Chef, if a person takes a shower, is that the same as wudu? Like take a regular shower every single day?
Okay. So, if I understood Sam's question, he's asking, is taking a shower every day the same as taking wudu? The answer is no. Wudu has to be performed in a sequence because there are 6 pillars for wudu. Without one of them, the wudu is invalid. Washing the face, washing the arms till the elbow, wiping over the head, washing the feet, simultaneously doing this and having the order, which is face, arms, head, and feet, not mixing up the sequence. These are the 6 pillars. So you have to have those when you make wudu. Having a shower, if you don't intend wudu and do these steps in fulfilling the pillars, you're not in the state of wudu. Except, and this is an exception which you have to pay attention to, general showers, daily showers, showers for cleaning, showers for going to the Jumu'ah, Friday khutbah, etc. They are all not, wudu is not included unless you specifically follow the procedure. Except when you take a shower with the intention of uplifting a major ritual impurity that you have. So if you had a nightfall, nocturnal emission, or you had intimacy with your spouse and you are in the state of janaba, this is known as major ritual impurity. If you take ghusl to uplift it, so you can be able to pray or to read the Qur'an or to enter the
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه. Let's just discuss the wudu a bit more, because I believe that what we are learning from the shuyukh, the priests, such as, for example, this scholar or priest that is spoken now, doesn't make a lot of sense for them, for the rational mind. So let me just recap what the Shaik just told us. The Shaik said that wudu is a ritual series of 6 items or 6 actions or 6 components, and it's to do with washing, and that if you should take a full shower, if you stand under the shower, then that will not absolve you from still performing that ritual wudu. So in other words, what he's saying is that you're standing in the shower, you're taking a shower, you're washing with soap and foam and with your buff, and you're scrubbing your body and everything is clean. It's not good enough. When you're done there, you need to now do a ritual washing of your face, your arms, and so on. And it's not enough unless that shower that you're taking there is to uplift a major pollutant. For example, if you've slept with your wife, and that is then acceptable. So the understanding we have is that that there's a sort of a lack of rational common sense in this whole thing. Now, what the Shaikh didn't mention, and what we know from our madrasas, and when you go to madrasa school, you get these acts which nullify or which negate the wudu, right? So you would be in a state, and this is the terminology that Muslims use, you in a state of wudu, right? And then that state of wudu is cancelled or is negated if you should, for example, pass wind, if you should, touch a woman, if you, and some scholars say if you eat garlic, if you fall asleep, So those are all the arguments. If you go to the toilet for a number 1 or a number 2, those are all things that nullify and negate the wudu. So the concept of wudu is a form of a ritual cleansing. It's got nothing to do with cleanliness. Because I mean, if he states that if you go and you scrub yourself fully, top to bottom, head to toe, with a brush, it still wouldn't satisfy the requirement for wudu, which is a specific sequence or series of 6 items. So I want to offer my comment on this this view on wudu. And of course, what I would like to do is I'd like to look at this wudu concept, the state of wudu, this negation of wudu, or what they call in Arabic the mubtilat, the things that negate or that cancel out the state of wudu. Now, this whole field of legal development or ritual development is independent to a large extent of the Holy Qur'an. And so I'd like to just point you to the particular verse, and there's one verse that relates to this discussion. And let me show you that verse quickly. Qur'an chapter 5 verse 6, and this is really where all the scholars and all the thinking and all the books are written on this. And this speaks about wudu. And I'm going to offer you an explanation that is very different from what that Shaik has explained to you. And I don't know that Shaik did not cite you any sources. He did not give you any proofs. He simply stated the rule. But I'm going to offer you proof also. And so you are free to follow what you like. My proof is based on the Quran. And this verse consists of about 3 elements. This is a very long verse, chapter 5, verse 6. It consists of about 3 elements. The first element is the formal, normal wudu. That the word isn't mentioned really. The word that is mentioned is ghasl. Faghsilu, right? It is a ghaslain and a mashatain. It's 2 ghasls and 2 mashs. So the first part says, heed this, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, you who embrace this scripture. When you have risen to attend the routine engagement session, wash your faces and your hands up to the elbows. Additionally, anoint partially your heads and your feet ankle high. And that's the first part. So the first part says that when you prepare to engage with people, when you engage with God, the salah, which we know now means to become part of, to become connected to become engaged, to liaise with, to associate with, form part of, become active, become engaged. That is salah. And when you rise or when you intend to become part of any form of engagement with God, with people, wash your faces and your hands up to the elbows. Additionally, anoint partially your heads and your feet ankle high. Right, that's the first part. The second part now of this verse says, when you are unclean, then cleanse yourself. After you recover from an illness or have been on a journey, or if any of you returns after defecating or after having been intimate with women, you should cleanse with water implicitly, but should you not have access to water, you should resort to pure earth with which you should wipe your faces and your hands. So that is the second part of the verse. And the second part of the verse lists 4 occasions when you recover from an illness, a sick bed or from hospital, or when you come back from an extended journey. So you've left your city, your town, and it is a journey. It is not A journey is something that is tiring. It is not something that you do every day. So a journey is something that takes you away from your locality. That's the second time. The third time is if you went to the loo. If you went to, and the word specifically is in ja'a ahadukum min al-gha'it, which is a number 2, defecating. When you have gone to the loo and you have finished your business in the loo, or after having been intimate with women. So those are the 4 occasions that the verse is telling us that, first of all, when you are unclean, then cleanse yourself. Right? So it says, for any reason besides these 4, you should clean yourself. When you develop a smell, when you develop a little BO, body odor, you should clean yourself. And body odor includes bad breath, smelly feet, but that would be when you are unclean, when you've developed some sort of bad odor on the body, when you feel unclean, then you should cleanse yourself, right? So you should wash. So we are instructed, when you are unclean, when you smell, when you feel dirty, when you've done something that you feel is unclean, you should wash. But the verse says particularly 4 times, even if you don't feel dirty, you should still wash. In other words, when you recovered from an illness, when you come back from a journey, when you went to the loo for a number 2, or after having been intimate with women. And we know that's euphemism for having had sex. Right. You should clean with water, that's implicit, but it's not stated, but it is implicit in the sense that it then says, but should you not have access to water, you should resort to pure earth. So that second part is a mouthful. It basically instructs you and me, the observer, those who are mu'mineen, right? The mu'mineen are instructed here to have a high standard of personal cleanliness and freshness. As a mu'min, you always smell fresh and clean. You never reek. And that is what this second part of the verse says. Right. And now comes the third part. God's intention is not to put you through any hardship. ما يريد الله ليجعل عليكم من حرج ولكن يريد ليطهركم وليتم نعمته عليكم لعلكم تشكرون. God's intention is not to put you through difficulty or hardship. Rather, His intention is to cleanse you, and in fulfillment of His grace to you, hopefully you will have appreciation. Now that's the sum total of the verse that speaks about cleanliness and what the so-called term that the scholars have invented called wudu. The word wudu doesn't appear here, so it's a term that is strictly invented by the scholars. The idea of being in a state of wudu is also not mentioned here, so you don't see anything to do with a state of wudu. What is also not mentioned here is the technical rulings pertaining to when you take a shower, the wudu is not fulfilled, as that Shaik has explained. So how do we tally, how do we square up what this verse says? And this is really the only verse in the Qur'an that speaks about the so-called wudu, that we can interpret as speaking about the wudu. How does this verse tally with what we learn and what we hear from the priests and the scholars? Now, if I'm going to listen to the priests and scholars, it becomes a very ritualistic and it becomes a very mystical ritual, this wudu. But if I look at this verse here, this verse is making a very, very obvious claim that when you go and you are going to worship God, When you are making salah, you are connecting with God. In other words, you are going to go into a state of meditation, or you are going to connect with people. You are required to freshen up. Freshen up. The first part of the verse is the freshening up part. The second part of the verse is cleaning, if there's heavy cleaning needed. And the third part of the verse is the point and the purpose of it all, which is to keep you clean and fresh. Rather, look at the third line. His intention is to cleanse you. وَلَكِنْ يُرِيدُ لِيُطَهِّرَكُمْ. The aim of this whole process is cleanliness. There's no mention of a ritual or of a mystical form of cleansing. It's absent. If there's any form of mysterious or mystical washing that is involved here, we can only say that it would be the influence of Zoroastrian or other forms of pagan washing and ablutions, because certainly there's no sign of any form of ritual ablution here. And so all I can say is, if I'm to act based on this verse, then I cannot follow what the madrasas are teaching. And what I would suggest, and this is what I regard as the appropriate way to consider the washing. And I call it not the wudu, but I call it freshening up. When you are going to meet with people, when you are going to engage with people, even when you are going to worship on your own, my suggestion is that we freshen up. What the so-called wudu is not 6 items, as that Sheikh said. There's only 4 items. That you will wash your hands and you will wash your face. That is what I will suggest. That is how you prepare when you go to an interview, when you go to mosque, when you go to pray, when you do anything. Before you engage with people, before you engage with anyone, is that you wash your hands up to, roll up the sleeves, wash hands on your face. That is what we do. As far as the mashatain of the head and the feet, those are simply a form of tidying up the hair or wiping the hair so that it's tidy, and it is simply a form of cleaning the feet if the feet had perhaps got any dust on, or if the feet maybe are open, if you've worn open slippers or open sandals. It doesn't make sense to clean feet that are already clean, because the idea of cleaning is that cleaning presupposes that there is dirt. Cleaning presupposes that there is dirt. The aim of this whole verse is cleansing. It's cleansing. And so, there are actually hints of that in the in some of the hadith. And some people say the only mutawatir hadith, the only multiply transmitted hadith in the body of hadith and sunnah is actually the one that says that the Prophet used to just touch over his closed up shoes. If he had closed shoes, he would just basically, he would not take it off when doing this ablution. Do you know that? Some people say that's the only mutawatir, in other words, a multiply translated hadith, where the Prophet never actually took if he had closed up shoes on, they call it that time khuf, which is just another word for a leather shoe or a closed up shoe or a boot. If he had those on, then he would not take it off. And so the freshening up is basically amounts to the face and the hands up to the elbows. And the proof of that is, in fact, that if you don't find water, then you only do the wiping of dust of the face and arms. Right. So that is my suggestion. That is how I will do it, is that I freshen up when I meet people, when I go out, I freshen up. Now, how often do you do it? How often do you do it? Do you have to freshen up every time? Do you have to wash your face and your hands every time? Of course not. If I have not accumulated any form of dirt on my hands, and dirt come to you in various forms, like if you handle strange objects, and if you use your hands for things that can attract anything that is dirt, then you have to wash your hands again, because that would mean that there's a chance of having accumulated dirt. So if you're going to meet people again, and you might have done something which could have caused your hands to be dirty, we don't know what, maybe you scratched yourself or whatever. I mean, then you should wash again. And that is just the polite thing to do, is to always retain cleanliness on your hands and on your face. That is the wudu. And the idea that passing wind breaks wudu, it's not. Do you see it? Yeah, I don't see it. You look if you see that. Does touching a woman break your wudu? No, because the verse is very clear. If you have been lamastumun nisa, if you have been intimate, sexually intimate, not if you just touched a woman. Does it say here when you sleep you must take wudu? No, it doesn't say that. Does it say here when you had a number one, when you just urinated? No, it doesn't say that. Does it say? It says clearly. I mean, we should not add words where there are none. The word is very clear. In ja'a ahadum minkum min al-gha'it, which is defecating. So does it say here that when you go if you pee that you must make? Doesn't say that here. I'm just saying what the verse is saying. If you want to add more laws and you want to add 500 laws to this, that's up to you. The Lord, our Master and Creator, has spoken in chapter 5, verse 6. He's given the instructions in detail. That is there. I mean, if you want to follow 500 more instructions, just don't call that as from God. Call that something else. Call that your rituals that you've received from other sources. But you cannot claim those rituals to be from the Qur'an then. You see, so the concept here is that you're supposed to clean when you're smelly, when you're dirty, when you feel that you've have some body odor. You're supposed to wash, right? And that washing is any form of it's washing that is aimed at the parts of your body that is dirty. So if you develop if you've worked hard and you've sweated, you wash under your arms, you wash between your legs, you wash in the crevices, and you clean it out. And that's the instruction of the verse here, is that when you are unclean, then cleanse yourself. Fatahharu. That is the instruction here. But there are 4 occasions when you must really wash. When you get out of a sick bed, when you've been intimate with women, when you've traveled on a long journey. In other words, when you've traveled across a long distance, not, you've spent hours and hours on airports, you've had to go to strange toilets, you've had to, when you've actually been in contact with areas outside of your town, when you've been, when you've traveled intimate with women, when you've recovered from a sickness, and the other one is when you come from the loo, from a number. That's the time that you must wash. Now, again, if you come from the loo, what does it mean by washing? It means simply this. The Quran is stating a very obvious thing here, because the Quran has to put it on record, is that when you go to the loo and you have to relieve yourself, you have to wash on the spot. You have to wash the affected parts of your body where excrement or dirt has come into contact with you outside of the body. You have to cleanse that. You have to wash it away. Right? That is what this is saying, is that wash off any dirt, and then after that, wash your hands. That is what this verse is saying. This verse is all about cleanliness. Now, the things that I want to leave with you as I close down is that this whole thing of, I'm going to the mosque, let me make wudu, that terminology, let me make wudu, is alien to the Quran. That terminology must drop. It doesn't appear here. When you want to go and meet people, you have to freshen up. You have to wash your hands and your face. And if your feet and your head requires attention, you have to give that attention. Right? That is all it means. Then when you have to go to toilet or you have to do anything else, then you wash for those reasons. You don't take wudu. So in other words, when you go to the, read this verse, right, and you'll see. This verse doesn't mean that going to the loo breaks the wudu. That term is not here, breaking the wudu. That's a term that was invented. The verse just says that if you go to the toilet, you wash for that purpose. The hands and the face do not need to be washed again. Do you get what I'm saying? So the concept here is cleanliness. The verse says, لا ما يريد الله ليجعل عليكم من حرج ولكن يريد ليطهركم وليتم نعمته عليكم لعلكم تشكرون. So it is not made as a burden. This whole ritual wudu thing, we need to forget about it. We need to eliminate it from our lives. It is a complete innovation on the Quran. It is what we call, it is a fabricated aspect of Islam. The Quran doesn't mention wudu. You see, the wudu is mentioned in the sense that it is a form of cleanliness. And I hope I've made that very, very clear to you, and that we can stop complicating this religion. We must stop complicating this religion. This is not a religion of rituals. This is not Zoroastrianism. This is not Talmudism. This is not any other form of ritualistic religion. This is a practical approach to living life with cleanliness, with decency, with kindness. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.